Hi, this is Derek Harp, founder and chairman of ÇSE, and your host for this upcoming Wednesday's ÇSE Online seminar. And we're doing it with Rick Kaun, who I have here today. And Rick is the VP at Verve, and many people know Rick from the industry. He's been in it for a long time. I always say there's just the small handful of people that can go back a long time trying to work on cybersecurity and cybersecurity as it pertains to industrial systems. That just starts to limit the field quickly. So you've been at this for a while, right, Rick?
Yeah, I always joke with my boss, and more people figure out there's a lot of opportunity here. The smart people will come and I'll be displaced pretty quickly. Don't know if it's a bad habit or I just love the space, but it's a lot of fun. And yeah, I've been around for a bit, seen some of you and the other colleagues that are part of ÇSE, and appreciate networking with everybody. Looks like we're gonna have a job for a while yet here. That's as more and more industries get tuned into this and realize the struggles of just how big this is.
Yeah, I think that's the case. And thank you for being a former chapter president in Calgary, one of the very first chapter presidents, frankly, in the whole 6-year evolution of this thing. So you've been involved with us since almost the very beginning. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. And I'm looking forward to some semblance of return to normal so we can get back to it, because I think it was very valuable and they were really well received. So
Yeah, well, you guys in Calgary were doing quite a few things as early as the first couple of chapters. So we're on Wednesday. We're talking about the new TSA directive. I thought
yep.
maybe today I'd just ask you to sort of quick thumbnail. This has come out. We obviously had an incident this year. How are people reacting to it? I know you'll get into the details on Wednesday, but is this something that people are sort of what's their reaction to it?
Yeah, well, to be clear, I'm not going to talk about the technical details of the TSA. It's not necessarily publicly available. However, what I do want to do is draw a parallel to this industry. You've mentioned I've been in this for 20 years. I've been in it for 20. I've seen two comings of the silver bullet and the start and now the current version of things like NERC-CIP. We're seeing some common mistakes and pipelines that we saw, 10, 15 years ago in NERC-CIP and in power, and that we're starting to see a lot of power companies come back and say, geez, we probably should do this again. I want a do-over sort of thing. And so hoping to gather some of the key components that typically we think you make or break an overall compliance program. And not just for the sake of compliance, but let's be honest, there's a lot of moving parts in OT cyber, and shedding the light on how much we have out there and how it's configured is going to be a pretty big sticker shock to many people. And so what I'm hoping to do is gain some insights from what works and what doesn't, and share that with the pipeline audience and say, let's not make the same mistake twice. Somebody's already gone down that and figured out it's a bad path. Let's learn from that and shorten our cycle. So I'm hoping to talk a little bit about structure, about maintenance, about management, about scope, automation to an extent, and maybe a little bit about where we see the market starting to go as you get more and more mature.
Yeah, I think that's great, and it is interesting to draw some parallels to NERC-CIP and sort of the electric grid electric sector has had to deal with that and work with that in its evolution and the various versions of it. And would you say there's more? Are we going to see more in these applied to different verticals, or even do you envision more that just says, look, everybody's in this critical infrastructure basket, no longer just you guys over here in let's say public utilities or in power even specifically, but everybody? How about water? We had that that interesting incident in Florida around water earlier this year.
Yep. Well, it's interesting, formal or informal, we're seeing a lot more both by industry vertical, but also by geography. In North America, we're certainly there's a lot of inbound inquiries in my inbox from my inside sales team around water and utilities. We're seeing a lot of pipeline stuff, obviously. We're starting to see it in other geographies as well, though. We're seeing a lot in Europe and the Middle East. There's a lot of ISA 99 or IEC 62443. So more and more are getting to it. Some are doing it a little more intelligently. They're sort of starting to pick their poison and like, well, let's at least get an inventory and some sort of vulnerability assessment before we try and boil the ocean. But we know that's a precursor towards, eventually actually managing risk and managing assets. So we are seeing it. I hate FUD. I always thought the dreaded Stuxnet that would, we're not supposed to talk about that in trade shows anymore, but I always thought that was the holy grail and things were going to turn. But yeah. I like to joke that as a security consultant, I tell people, if you do everything I tell you, nothing will happen. So how do you get ROI or budget for nothing happening, right? So, but we're getting there, and I think we're starting to see the pendulum swing. There's a pendulum. Everybody jumps in and maybe rushes to judgment and tool sets, and then comes back and realizes a little bit more. And again, that's why I want to bring it back to what we're seeing, what we're calling second generation security programs in NERC-CIP. Some of the early adopters are getting to the end of their initial tool set and process, and lacking more and more people, and standards continuing to sort of tune up. And so what are these pressures creating for what we call a second generation OT security program? First generation, not to tease too much, but first generation is a lot of, here's 10 things, I'm gonna go buy 10 tools and try and stitch them together and hope I can demonstrate compliance and keep it up to date. But you're missing the organizational, you're missing, cross-functional skill sets, you're not addressing the significant shortage in staff and resources. And so I want to shed some light on some alternative approaches to some of that we're seeing have really significant success, like 70 and 80% reduction in manual effort, right? I mean, that's a huge thing. If you have to go do something like fix Bluekeep or protect from it, and you can reduce what would typically take you, 10 hours down to 3, right? That 70% reduction is significant. So it's hoping to share some of those lessons.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Rick. I'm just inviting everybody to attend Wednesday at 1 o'clock, the CSA seminar on navigating the new TSA directive for pipelines with Rick Kaun from Verve. Thanks for everything you do, Rick, and I look forward to being with you on Wednesday.
I always appreciate the time with you, Derek, and the group. It's a great initiative, and I enjoy supporting it.
Great. See you Wednesday, Rick.